Mr. Ronnie Jones, chairman of the Louisiana Gaming Control Board. Hey, Mr. Ronnie, how are you today?
Morning, folks. How are you guys?
So if I said to you, Ronnie, these rumblings, Bossier City, DiamondJacks, you probably would not say, why, this is the first I've heard, huh?
I never profess to be as informed as you guys are up there in the local area, but I do hear things from time to time down here in Baton Rouge.
So what you hearing? What can you tell us?
Well, as long as I've been chairman, we've had informal inquiries from properties in the Bossier Shreveport area. They're a little bit uncomfortable. Some are with the loss of revenue and customers in that market. And from time to time, we'll get calls about what would it take to move our license, and we simply provide information. So last week, it became a little more formalized when Peninsula Pacific issued a news release and said that they were looking at investing about $100 million either in improvements to the existing property in Bossier City, or perhaps actually seeking a relocation of that license into South Louisiana.
What would it take, Ronnie? What do they have to do? What's the process?
Okay, if they wanted to move that license to South Louisiana, it's a long process, and that's by design, because the legislature wanted this to be deliberative and make sure that the moves were appropriate and served the interests of the state. So two things would have to happen in the upcoming legislative session. One is, based on information that's preliminary, the applicants for a rebirthing request would have to have the Tangipahoa River designated as a designated waterway. Under current law, it is not so designated, and you can't have a riverboat on anything but a waterway that's been designated as such, navigable waterway, by the legislature.
Excuse me, Mr. Ronnie, pardon me. So they'd have to have a riverboat despite the potentially, the changes in the rules that might let land-based casinos exist in other parts of the state? How would that work?
Don't get ahead of me, Robert.
Sorry.
All right. First, they would have to designate the waterway. All right, that's the first thing. That's the first bill that would have to pass. Secondly, the recommendation by the Riverboat Gaming Task Force that properties be able to be on land rather than on a boat will also have to pass. Those two things will have to happen in the legislature in the upcoming legislative session before that property could seek to actually move outside of Hammond, Louisiana, into Tangipahoa Parish. So let's just assume, for the sake of discussion, that both of those things happen. The owner of the license would then petition the board for a new berthing site on that navigable waterway, the Tangipahoa River. The local parish council would have to call a public referendum, and the residents of Tangipahoa Parish would have to approve the location of that riverboat berthing site in their parish. And as a final matter, they would have to come before the Gaming Control Board and make a presentation and say, this is what we're going to invest, this is what we want to build, and this is why it's good for the state of Louisiana. So we're months away from anything happening to DiamondJacks.
Would that potential move, would that possible move, it seems to me it's dependent on a lot of state gaming rules changing via the legislature.
Well, the biggest one would have to be the movement 1,250 feet off of the water onto land, because I'm from Tangipahoa Parish, and I can tell you it's not wide enough at any point to actually put a riverboat in. But you could designate it as a waterway and then build a land-based facility adjacent to whatever berthing site the board approves.
Ronnie, I'm looking at some of the numbers. DiamondJacks was the fifth finishing boat. I think it's 6th finishing boat in our community. $3.4 million in December.
Yep.
I'm looking at the Belle of Baton Rouge, the Hollywood Baton L'Auberge. The two Belle is $4 million, Hollywood Baton Rouge $5 million. My concern is this, Ronnie. Tangipahoa's not a wealthy parish. At least here in Shreveport-Bossier, we have folks coming in from Texas and Arkansas. In Tangipahoa, you're not going to have out-of-state visitors. They're not coming to the Tangipahoa River to gamble because they got New Orleans, They've got the Gulf Coast. They've got Baton Rouge nearby. It's like we're going to cannibalize on our own people.
And that's always a concern of the board. And I don't want to speak for the licensee who has suggested that they might request a move. I mean, obviously, I would think that they've done appropriate marketing research that would tell them that a property there would be profitable. I will say this. Based on some demographic data that I've seen in the past, an awful lot of people on the North Shore, that is Tangipahoa Parish, St. Tammany, St. Helena, Livingston, many of those people who enjoy gambling go to Mississippi rather than the New Orleans casinos. So its biggest impact, I think, long term, would be on Mississippi gaming revenue coming out of Louisiana rather than hurting the Baton Rouge market that much. I don't know. It's something that we'll have to look at as we go through the process. It's way too early for the Gaming Control Board to even take a position on it since nothing's been presented to us.
I don't know much. Okay, I don't know anything about building things. In fact, the last thing I built was a 5-layer bean dip over the weekend. So I'm wondering, is in the scheme of improvement, is in the scheme of casino and or casino construction, is $100 million a lot, or is it just a drop in the bucket?
It's hard to say. What the board has attempted to convey throughout the discussion of this land-based option is we are not inclined to simply approve, and I think I told you guys this a couple of weeks ago, we're not inclined to approve a movement of gaming devices off a vessel into an existing, conference room facility in a hotel. This is about starting from the ground up. And what's been shared with us on a preliminary basis is what would happen in Hammond would be a resort facility with a hotel, conference center, spa, pool. It's not just a gambling hall. The board would not be inclined, nor would the parish residents, I think, vote to just have a gambling building in Tangipahoa Parish. This is about building something that's going to employ some people and invest some money into that economy.
Ronnie Jones, let me ask you this. If we lose DiamondJacks to Tangipahoa Parish, we lose that license. It's not like the lawmakers are going to say, oh, we're going to go to 16 licenses now. That's not going to happen, right?
That is not going to happen.
And then what happens with a great big empty boat and a vacant hotel?
Well, if it's a boat, I guess I can move it. I don't know. I mean, that's something that would have to be resolved with the owner, and he would have to present some alternatives to the board if he wants to move that license. I mean, even though DiamondJacks hasn't been the best performer in that market, last fiscal year it brought in $10 million in revenue to the state, about $2.2 million in local fees, property taxes of $2 million. So it's still a piece of that economy. It may not be the best performing license up there. So, if they don't move, he's going to invest the money into that property. So that's certainly going to be a win for Bossier City if the property doesn't move.
In your experience, a casino that's been the lowest performer, if they come in and revamp and rebuild and build, can they ever get that stigma of, we're not going to go to that boat? Can they ever overcome that stigma? Does that happen?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I've seen that in other states. And, if they, let's just say hypothetically, that they decide to stay in Bossier or they're unable to move out of Bossier, and they move entirely off that boat onto property and build a brand new facility, yeah, it's fair game. They could be just as profitable as any of the other properties up there.
You're a betting man or not? Do you?
No.
Does Bossier keep this boat? Does it move? What would you think?
I just don't want to speculate on anything involving the legislative process at this stage of the game. It's going to be a tough session. Those legislators are going to be focused on a budget, and there are going to be some outlier issues. This is one of those. It's got 2 legislative hurdles to overcome. It's a tough road ahead.